Conjugates. The conjugate of 2 plus square root 7 is 2 minus square root 7. And these are important because the product of two conjugates is a rational number. Let's take this for example. We have 2 plus the square root of 7 times 2 minus the square root of 7. So we have conjugates here. And so when we multiply, we distribute. Right? So we got 2 times 2 is 4. And then we have 2 times negative square root 2. That's going to be negative 2 square root 2. And we have square root 7 times 2 is going to be plus 2 square root 7. These are square root 7s there. And then when we distribute the last one, we get square root 7 times negative square root 7. That's going to become negative 7. Right? Because that is negative square root 7 times square root 7. Right? Square root 7 times square root 7 is 7. Okay, so then when we simplify, we get 4. The negative 2 times square root 7 plus 2 times square root 7, these are like terms, and they cancel out. Right? That just leaves us with 4 minus 7, which is equal to negative 3. So multiplying conjugates together results in a rational number without a square root. Okay. So if we're trying to use conjugates here to rationalize the denominator, right, how can we do it? Well, we can multiply by the conjugate. Right? So 2 minus square root 2 over 2 minus square root 2. And so what are we multiplying by? We're multiplying by 1, right? Because 2 minus square root 2 divided by 2 minus square root 2 is 1. But this is helpful because when we multiply our denominators, it's going to turn our expressions involving radicals and square roots into rational numbers without the square roots. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. Up in the numerator, we get 3 times 2 minus square root 2. And in the denominator, we get 2 plus square root 2 times 2 minus square root 2. All right. So let's go ahead and deal with the numerator first. We get distribute out the 3, so we get 6 minus 3 square root 2. And in the denominator, we get 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we get 2 times negative square root 2 is negative 2 square root 2. 2 times positive square root 2 is plus 2 square root 2. And then when we figure out this last bit, we get square root 2 times negative square root 2 is negative 2. All right. So let's go and figure out that denominator. Well, this section here cancels out and becomes 0, right? Because these are like terms. So negative 2 square root 2 plus 2 square root 2, that becomes a 0. So we get 4 minus 2 in the denominator. We get 4 minus 2 in the denominator. The numerator still has a radical, but that's fine, right? We're just worried about making the denominator a rational number. So let's go ahead and say equals 6 minus 3 square root 2 over 2. And we are done, right? So we can't simplify any further. Call it a day. Let's go and try it again with this one over here. We're going to make the denominator a rational number. We're going to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by 3 plus square root 7 over 3 plus square root 7. Right? So let's go ahead and rewrite that as 7 times 3 plus square root 7. And then in the denominator, it's going to be 3 minus square root 7 times 3 plus square root 7. And then we're going to work out the math. So we'll distribute out the 7, and we get 21 plus 7 square root 7 over. And here we need to distribute. So we get 3 times 3 is 9. We'll get plus 3 square root 7 minus 3 square root 7, and then, oh, it's not a plus at the end, it is a minus 7. It's minus because it's negative times a positive is negative. Square root 7 times square root 7 is just 7. So that's going to equal to 21 plus 7 square root 7 over 9. The 3 square root 7 minus 3 square root 7 becomes 0, and we get minus 7. So we can simplify further and say 21 plus 7 times square root 7 over 2 And that's going to be our final answer.